Hello, I'm Hernan and welcome to the 3D Color Factory, Lesson 3 on multicolor 3D printing using support blockers in Cura and printing in an Ender 3 from Creality. In this lesson, we'll learn how to use other stls or models as blockers to gain more control of our print. For this lesson, we'll be using a nameplate of a girl's room with a flower. But this time, we'll add a frame and a couple of holes for a string to hang it. Here's the design in Fusion where we can see the nameplate from different sides. I did this drawing in Corel to get ideas on the color combination for the nameplate. Because Corel is easier than Fusion to change colors, especially if we want to have a quick look at many different color combinations. I recommend that you get some drawing software like Corel or Inkscape or Adobe Illustrator, because in future lessons you will see that using a drawing software makes it easier to get designs into your prints. So let's start by opening Cura and load the model. This time the print is 5mm tall. We'll be generating 5 G-codes, one for each color or section of the print. G-code 1 will be the 2mm backplate, G-code 2 for the petals of the flower at 1mm thick, G-code 3 for the center of the flower, also 1mm thick, G-code 4 for the text, which this time is going to be 2mm thick, and G-code 5 for the frame, which is 3mm thick. Now we're going to load a model of a cylinder that we'll be using as an eraser. Let's make the cylinder an eraser block. Select the cylinder from the Object List menu. Select Per Model Settings and select the same settings as before to make it an eraser. Uncheck Uniform Scaling, change the X and Y value to 10mm, so its diameter will be 10mm, and C to 2mm. Let's multiply the cylinder by 1. We can move the cylinder using the mouse to place it where we want the hole to be. But to ensure they are symmetrical, let's use the coordinates. Make x minus 90, y minus 32, z 0. Now select the other cylinder and move it to the opposite side at x 90, y minus 32 and z 0. Let's slice it and see how it looks. I think the holes look too big. Let's change their size to 5mm. That looks better, don't you think? We could move the holes closer to the corners, but for now, they look okay. Let's make the big eraser like in the previous lessons, but this time let's be more precise and make it the same size as the model. That is x 200, y 84. Remember, the frame is 3mm tall, so we make a z 3. We move it to X and Y to 0 and Z at 2 millimeters. Like last time, if we see the model from the side, we see that the eraser only covers the flower frame and the text. Let's slice it and see preview to confirm that only the backplate will be printed. Oops, I forgot to make the settings of the eraser to 0. Let's run the slicer again. Now it looks good. Let's save this G-code to the SD card and rename it with a 1 backplate so we know it is G-code 1 for the backplate. Let's go back to Cura. Select Prepare and select the eraser, then scale Z2. Then move the eraser and make Z0. Select the eraser again. Right-click and select Multiply Selected Model. This time the number of copies is 2. We're going to use these 2 erasers to help us with the flower and the text. Select one of the erasers, then scale X100, Y84, Z2, then move to X0, Y0, Z2. This brings the eraser to the center at height 2. With your mouse, place the eraser to cover the flower. Try to place it at the center of the flower. Let's run the slicer again to see how it works. It is erasing the flower, but something is wrong with the frame. When we look from the side, we see it is erasing part of the frame. So we need to resize it to make sure it only erases the flower without affecting the frame. We can resize it using the mouse like this. Let's see if the resize works. Now it looks better. Let's do the same with the eraser for the text. I think we got the eraser right where we want it. Let's run the slicer again. In preview, we should see only the frame. Now let's work on the frame eraser. First, we need to bring in another model just for the frame. The outside dimensions of the frame are 84 millimeters by 200 millimeters, and the wall of the frame is 5 millimeters wide. You can use Tinkercad, Fusion, or any other 3D modeling software to make it. In the description of this video, you can find the link to Thingiverse, where you can download all the models we're using today. Select the frame, move it to X0, Y0, Z2, and then make it an eraser. Let's slice it again and see if it erases the frame. Nothing prints. That means this works. So we're making progress. We're almost ready to generate G-codes 2, 3, 4, and 5. But before we create them, we have to move everything down 0.2 millimeters to create the interference, promoting adhesion that we learned in the last lesson. So let's move everything. Okay, now we're ready to generate the G-code. Let's move the eraser on the flower to 2.8 and slice the model. We should see only the bottom section of the flower with 5 layers. Save it to the SD card and rename it to flower. Resize the eraser of the flower to Z1, then move it to Z1.8 and slice it. We should see only the center piece of the flower with 5 layers. Save it to the SD card and rename it 3 center. Resize the eraser to Z2 and move it to Z1.8 to block again the flower. Now select the eraser on top of the text and move it to Z10 to get it out of the way. Slice the model again, and you should see only the text with 10 layers. Save it to the SD card and rename it for text. Move the eraser back to Z1.8 and move the eraser for the frame to Z10 and slice the model. You should see only the frame with 15 layers. Save it to the SD card and rename it 5 frame. Great! Now we have 5 G-codes. We're almost ready. But before we work on the G-codes, let's save the project in Cura. In the next lesson, we'll come back to this project, and we want to take advantage of all the work we have done with these erasers in this lesson. Okay, let's edit the G-codes. In G-code 1, we only add a semicolon to the N14 instructions at the end to keep the bed hot when the print is completed. In G-codes 2, 3, and 4, we add instructions to avoid the crash by raising the nozzle to Z4. And we also add the semicolon to the M14 instructions. In G-code 5, we only add instructions to avoid the crash. Now let's print it to see if what we did actually works. Load your first filament, in this case light green, and print G-code 1. It will take about 3 hours to print. Remember that once it finishes printing, the bed heating will remain on, so plan to be around when it finishes printing. Now let's change the color and load the white filament, and print G-code for the flower. Change the filament to yellow and print G-code 3 for the center of the flower. When done printing, change the filament to green and print the G-code 4 for the text. When it finishes printing, change the filament to orange and print G-code 5 for the frame. And we're done. Let the print cool before removing it from the build plate. I really like the way it came out. In the next lesson, we'll be doing some remixes of this project that I'm sure you will find helpful for your projects. But for now, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and have a great day.